Hello, my beautiful co-creators of the new paradigm. Thank you for tuning in. In this video, I would like to talk about creative expression and how you can use that in your spiritual development. So first of all, I would like to say that in my opinion, I believe that everybody is creative. Basically, fundamentally, if you take it on the widest spectrum possible, you are creative because you're creating the reality that you're observing to be in right now. So that is a pretty amazing thing. Look at it, think about it. You're looking at this computer screen or your maybe your phone right now, whatever you're using to watch this video on. And that is just the beginning. Start looking beyond it. Like, what is the room like that you're sitting in? Are you walking on the street? What are you doing? Every single thing you see around you, in one way, shape, or form, has in a sense been created by you. Has been custom made in a sense by you and also by the collective that you're focused in. That is an agreement that we make in the non-physical. But overall, in a sense, what you perceive is something that you co-create or create just for you. Say you have a very particular preference in the way you dress. And the clothes that you wear are a particular style, and that is creativity. Some people put their hair up in a really cool way every single day or just once in a while, but when they do it, a lot of attention goes into it. That's creativity. When you love experimenting in the kitchen, that's creativity. So what I'm saying is, it doesn't always have to be an art form as the masses often think it has to be when they hear creativity. And it doesn't have to be you wrote a whole book or you were the choreographer of a dance. It doesn't have to be that big. But you may have the eyes or the mind of a choreographer. Oh my god, this is like the hardest word ever to put in this video. The people that write dance pieces, the people that think of the moves before the group or the person dancing the moves is actually gonna present them on a stage. And this can be the same person. The dancer can be the choreographer. So you may have the mind of a person who understands movement really, really well. You may be very aware of your own physical motion as you move through your own life. And that, in a sense, makes you a kind of dancer. Doesn't necessarily make you a dancer, but it makes you possessing the genes, the genetics in a sense. You have the structure, the blueprint level that connects you to that particular kind of awareness. So the reason I'm making this video is because I meet a lot of people in my life that tell me, oh, you're so creative. And they're often, because I paint and I've done art school in the past and I've been an illustrator for a profession for a long time, before stepping forward and out of the closet with my channeling work. And a lot of people think, oh, well, you can do that, but I can't. And it just, I don't want to say it hurts me, but it almost does. When people say that, it doesn't make me necessarily sad, but it's just that I know it's not true. And I so deeply wish for these people that they would know that for themselves, that usually I ask them, but there must be somewhere in your life where you're creative, like you experiment in the kitchen or you decorated your house so nicely. I mean, there's so many ways wherein we can express our creativity. And really, when you go back to the basis, like I said in the beginning, we do create a lot of magic. Like, our whole life is magic. If you look at this idea of us being the actual creators of the world we believe to be living in. That's pretty freaking amazing to begin with, right? I'm gonna go to how we can use creative expression in our everyday life, and how you may perhaps convince yourself, because there's absolutely no better way to do it, of how creative you are and what you can do with that. So, a good example, in my opinion, is the idea of doodling. So a lot of people, while they're on the phone or they're doing like some, I don't know, out of the window gazing or whatever, perhaps you have a boring moment in your job if you're still in that kind of job, at an office and you have a pen and paper and you just start drawing. And it's called doodling. A lot of people do it, and usually people don't really think about it, and maybe it's just shapes, maybe it's an actual figure, maybe you're aiming to draw something, but most of the time people don't really think about what they're making. This has been a thing that I did a lot when I was still in school and when I was bored, like elementary and secondary school mostly. After that it was art school and I wasn't so bored anymore, and there was enough drawing to be done there. But the drawing, sketching thing, I basically did it all the time. So as soon as I had a moment of not necessarily needing my full attention for whatever else was going on, I would doodle. And looking back at these little drawings that I made, I can actually see how I was telling myself little stories and how I was also most definitely giving myself hints about what was to come, in a sense. So paintings I made way before I started art school, sketches I made in my teenage years, a lot of this for me was my personal way of processing also contact information with multidimensional beings, which was a subject at the time that I didn't dare speaking about with other people. So it was my outlet, it was my way of processing the information that had come to me. Not only was it that, it also was, in a sense, practicing channeling. But I didn't realize that back then. I do now. And looking back, I can see how all the puzzle pieces suddenly fall into place. But in a sense, it was. So when you doodle, if you do at all, or anyone, I believe that in a sense, exactly because we're not thinking about what we're doing, we're just moving our hand and making some kind of figure, that's a channeling state. So when you doodle, you might actually draw some symbols that are of the utmost relevance for you in that moment in your life. When you take any kind of creative expression to the next level, that means you take it out of your mind and you actually act upon it. So you pick up that pencil and you start drawing and sketching without needing it to go anywhere specific. You open the gateways of imagination and anything can happen. Magic happens because that is the exact kind of energy frequency you want to be in to connect with and to tap into your own higher self, your own soul core essence. And that's the way it flows in, through inspiration, through creativity, through excitement to explore a particular direction. So I believe that when we do that, we might actually, in fact, even be drawing little light language symbols. This can totally happen. Like you're doodling, you don't know what you're making, and it might be a message that you really needed to see in that moment from one of your guides or your higher self that is being brought to you in code, in a sense. So look at that doodle before you throw it away. Check it out, check what you made, love it. See it as a part of you, like a little download that you actually helped materialize into this dimension for yourself, for nobody else, for no particular reason. You just did it. I can only recommend, if that is one way you like to express yourself in, to, well, look at it with different eyes if you want to. See what beautiful gifts you're actually giving yourself. Because all shapes, all forms, all figures hold a resonance energy frequency in them. And we don't need to necessarily know what it means. It's just something that apparently had to come through in that moment. And it's so fun to be in a state where you basically put your rational mind to the side for a moment without pushing it aside, without suppressing it, but just relaxing it, which will make it subside and relax automatically. And then in that moment, allow things to flow through you and see what you get. Now, if you do decide to start playing with creative expression in this way or any other way for the first time, and you haven't really practiced anything of this, and again, the doodling is just an example, and painting or drawing is just an example. It can be literally anything, like I said before, like arranging the furniture in your room is an actual act of creation. Making it feel better, that shows you when you do it to make it, the room, the organization in it, to make it feel better to you, that shows you're following something that can't be put in words. You're following your intuition. The driving engine in that moment is your higher self, is your knowing within yourself that there must be a better way to organize the living room. And when you do take action upon that, perhaps after moving it around, you will feel so much ease and release within yourself, knowing that, this is actually the kind of energy frequency that I wanted to be in all along. It's a lot better this way. Or now I can think, now I can focus. Like, I don't know if you're this kind of person, but I really need some kind of like order around me in order to be effective in other parts of my job. Like when I need to do some bookkeeping or when I need to figure out a plan for an event. It's really important for me to have some space to think in or to take a walk in nature. So yeah, walking can be creative too in that sense. If you follow your inspiration to go and take a walk, it's an act of inspiration in that sense. And perhaps you will find some things in nature that you see the beauty in. And just observing and recognizing beauty in your surroundings, in other people, in the artworks of other people, in a flower that grows between the cracks of the tiles in the street. All of these things, if you recognize them, you're looking with the eyes of an artist. You're looking with the appreciation of a creator. And in a sense, you are, in that moment, acknowledging that you are a co-creator of these things that you are perceiving. And you're loving them. And loving the world outside you in that way is an act of self-love. You're loving yourself. I really believe, and I understand from dialogues with Arjun, the guide that I channel, that our complete body responds to situations like that every single cell begins to resonate in a more harmonious manner when we choose to love and appreciate things around us, or about other people, or about ourselves, first of all, of course. But on the other hand, it's the same thing. So it's still appreciation. It's the same energy frequency that you're tuning in with. So back to if you want to start being creative in your own way. I just wanted to share that for some people, you may find that when you start doing this, you actually immediately encounter the worst case of resistance. This is the rational mind that steps in and goes like, oh, you're going to do this? Let's do it right. And it wants to take over. It thinks, oh, it needs to look like this, otherwise you have failed. Or it starts comparing whatever you're about to do with all the other people that you know or have ever heard of that are already doing that and that are at a certain level with that particular same kind of art already. And your rational mind may start judging, and this is very normal. So I would say when that occurs, I can see how that may pull in a strong desire for procrastination, and it may never happen eventually because of this. But if that occurs for you, be okay with that. Let your rational mind go crazy. Just look at it and let these thoughts come and go. And just tell yourself, they're just thoughts, you know. They don't actually say anything about who you are or about your capabilities because you don't know yet. You haven't done these things yet. And when you start doing them, then you're just beginning to get to know yourself in that direction. And second of all, comparing really is not possible because you are a different person than all of these other people that you're thinking of. And a lot of genius inventions were made by accident, perhaps through, or actually not perhaps, but just knowing for sure, through allowing yourself to experiment and to just walk a direction that you're perhaps not familiar with yet, but you feel a calling in that direction. By doing that and by trusting that calling, you open the door for such inventions to happen, for magic to happen, for more of you to unfold through you. So I would say always go do it. So this first layer of resistance is very normal. Just love yourself nonetheless and let it pass by, and it will blow over. It will, I promise you. If you just stick with your passion, it will go. Another thing that may happen is that you feel there's so much of a particular energy frequency that has been wanting to come out or to surface through this particular creative manner that you decided to go explore, that crazily enough, when you turn off your rational mind, the first pieces or some of the works that you're making, whatever it's looking like, seem sad or depressing or angry. That's okay too. That's normal too. Because you often start with the things that need to be seen the most. So your higher self will allow you to, in a sense, purge everything that needs to move out of the way before lighter energy frequency messages can come through. And I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that lighter is better than lower. In fact, lower energy frequencies are the ones that allow us to move up to the higher ones if we do allow them, if we do look at them, if we look at them, face to face, if we dare to face our fears. So I call this processing art, and of course this can look many, many ways. But I wanted to show you a little example of something that I made as a result of not feeling capable to speak when I was a child, a teenager, and in my 20s during art school, because the multidimensional experiences I had in the surroundings that I was in, I myself in that moment chose to believe I couldn't share these experiences with my surroundings. So I can see how that was something that past version of me chose to believe to be true. And I'm so happy I no longer believe that. But if I do choose to believe that again, which I can, of course, then I will own it. And I'm owning it now for my past version as well. But the way that past version of me in art school processed these emotions of, in a sense, powerlessness and loneliness and feeling misunderstood, I processed that by making figures that were that came from my own imagination and that would express the energy frequency of that sadness in a way. So I'm going to show you one of these processing art pieces. So this is a little bit of an older piece. It's a painting and also a collage. So this little being here, let's see, how can I still check this little being here, and I will also see if I can show you a still, is an acrylic painting on canvas. You see there's some objects on it because this is an actual tip of a pencil and this is an actual little ink jar. So this being has a really, really big head, very ET-like. Only the difference is it's wrapped in a cloth. This is the eyes. These are the eyes. There's 2 band-aids on the mouth. Well, is there any more obvious way to express feeling unable to express? These are 2 little threads coming from the mittens that it's wearing. These 2. And they run all the way down to the ink jar and the pencil tip. And the ink jar is almost empty. So, and then there's these snowflakes. It's winter, by the way. There's these little snowflakes from a soft kind of paper. And I cut out words from the newspapers that I felt were, you could say, in alignment with the energy frequency that I was trying to translate in this work. So some of the words that are in this work are, well, it's in Dutch, so I'm just going to translate it for you guys. Some of the words are, let's see, how would I translate this? Feeling awkward, decency. That means, in this particular case, I felt challenged by the idea of what decent is supposed to be in our society, or the way I perceived society when I was creating this. Suppression, obedience, that's another one of those. Powerlessness, panic, fear, somberness, keeping a distance or isolation, and conflict. So I let these words snow down around this little image, creating a kind of winter, which is a symbol for me of a challenging phase in your life, a challenging season. I'm not particularly a great fan of the cold, so it's not as bad as it used to be, but my aversion, I mean, that I'm choosing to have, by the way. But it was bad then, and that's why this image, or the little figurine, is so wrapped up in clothes and kind of like distancing herself from the world, and wearing these mittens and winter booties. So it's all in the same energy frequency of the message, of the energy frequency of the emotion that I was trying to express. Now, because I liked writing as a way to vent my own emotions and thoughts in a diary, mainly at the time, I gave this little figure threads from the hands leading to the ink and the pencil tip. So the reason the ink is almost empty and the pencil tip is broken off or standing alone is because I also felt like there were hardly any words left. Nonetheless, the way the writing was my way of grounding and staying on this earth and having something to relate with, to feel anchored by. And that's why both the ink and the pencil tip both are growing roots, as you can see. So this is what I was expressing with this particular piece at that time. And releasing art, or processing art, as you might call it perhaps, like this, helped me distance myself from that emotion. And it gave me a creative way to look at it in a different angle, from a different point of view. Because while I was making this, even though I was full on facing that emotion and really going into it, diving into it and feeling it in every fiber of my being, after I created this piece, I could look at it and actually feel appreciation and love for it. And this is why, there is a sense of fulfillment when you finish a piece of art, when you finish moving around the furniture in your room, when you finish whatever you were planning to experiment with. And this is why I believe that if lower energy frequency sensations move up and surface in a creative process, why that is a really good thing. So I had a little conversation with Arjun about this, the guide that I channel. And because I got really curious about other forms of art that trigger so-called lower energy frequency emotions in other people, in observers or listeners. Now, music is a really good example for that, because we all know that there are songs that can make you cry. At least most people I know can get really moved by a particular piece of music. Whether it's getting more happy or getting sad, in any way, shape or form, being moved by it. Now, the sad song is a good example here, because that is the kind of thing that I was curious about. So I asked Arjun, what's going on when a group of people starts crying in a concert because they're so moved by the song, because it's so sad and it's so just triggers something in them. What is actually going on there? And Arjun explained to me that, and this is in 1 second download answer, the way I perceive it coming from him. He said that the artist or the musician and all the people listening to him or her in that moment are meeting each other on an overlapping energy frequency, bandwidth, you could say. So the song was written in a particular energy frequency and contains that energy frequency. And it's offered to the listeners in that moment who tune in with it. Some for who it is relevant in that moment will begin to resonate on that same energy frequency. And then they will feel their own version of that hurt or love, sad, whatever the theme of the song is, in their own system. So the reason why this happens is because these people had to feel that again. So they were offered a gateway to tune in with that emotion, because it would help them see other things if they would trace the emotion back to the belief that wants to be seen. So everybody listening to the sad song and crying, in a sense, is still releasing, processing certain things, or letting go of certain beliefs that no longer serve them in that moment, because tears are a physical expression of letting go, of releasing onto itself. So everybody listening to that song in that moment who feels moved deeply and allows that to flow through them by, for instance, expressing their sadness by crying, they're actually releasing beliefs that no longer serve. So it can be that they're already letting them go just in a moment and allowing that to wash through them, or that they're inviting themselves to look at this again and to look a little closer. So isn't that beautiful? The artist, the musician, is actually channeling and providing for people an open gateway to look at their own stuff, in a sense, and to transform things and to lift themselves to another level in their own journey. Isn't it beautiful that when we actually follow our hearts and creatively express ourselves, that without knowing it, in most occasions, we begin inspiring other people. We begin helping them on their journey, even if what we express seems sad to begin with, because there will always be one or two or more people on the earth that want to hear what you have to say, that want to hear your musical piece, that it will resonate with somebody. This is what Arjun also says. It doesn't come through for no reason. It comes true for you. That's reason enough, obviously, of course. But there are usually more people. There is usually an audience. And if you haven't found them yet, it's just because it might very well be about belief systems that you hold within your mind, your rational mind, about what an audience ought to be or what it should look like. But there is always an audience. There's always somebody that you can show it to or share it with and get some feedback and see what happens. And the best thing is to share it without expectation. I can really, really recommend that. The last thing I wanted to say about this idea of creative expression is that there is no such thing as perfection. I understand that there might be such a thing for the rational mind, and I understand people who are passionate about improving their skills, and that is beautiful, but there will always be a next level. There will always be again and again and again a next level, something to strive for, to reach for. And that's just the journey, and it's beautiful, and it's nicer to know that that will always be the case, in a sense, when you think about it, at least for me. It's nicer for me to know that that will always be the case, that there will always be a next level, and that there will always be another invitation for me to walk outside of my comfort zone, whether it's in the arts or in any other direction of how I choose to live my life. That's a nicer thought than thinking that such a thing as a final station actually even exists, because that would be limiting and narrow-minded, and it would take away my excitement and my curiosity, in fact. So yeah, for people who have this perfection virus running through their system, which is a very common thing nowadays, I wanted to let you know, if you wanted to do something visual with figurative arts, please realize that even a portrait of a being, let's say, for instance, as an example, doesn't have to be figurative. You can make a portrait that just exists out of colors. You can make a color landscape that represents the energy frequency of a person to you, the way you see them in shapes and colors, without even attempting to make a perfect face with 2 eyes and a nose and a mouth or whatever. So there are so many more ways to go about depicting a particular subject. For instance, even though I was an illustrator, am still in a sense, and I worked quite figurative for most of the time, I also really loved simplistic drawings that would quickly and easily explain a particular energy frequency in a storyline without going into details and so-called perfectionism, because that would actually keep me from flowing with it. So even though I was an illustrator, I really still do abstract art. Like, for instance, one of my favorites is, it's a classic. Mark Rothko is a painter who makes basically big squares on canvas that are very soft around the edges and that are very deep colors. And every square may exist out of like 50 layers of thinned down oil paint, and the colors, when you actually see these paintings in real life, are so deep and so liquid and so vibrant. That is fascinating. I mean, to me, that is just as powerful as anything else that is seemingly perfect in a figurative manner. So there is no perfection. Everything is already perfect in a sense. Both, it's the same thing. Don't let that keep you from taking action. So pick your form, your method, whatever it is. I can only recommend it. If doodling is your thing, you already do it. Just buy some more pens and leave them around the house so that wherever you have a little moment, you can pick a piece of paper and do it again and see what you get. Like, focus on it a little more, take it a step further, if that excites you at all, of course, and see what you get. You're literally channeling something. You're always channeling something. If you allow this to happen, insights may come to you, things begin to accelerate, synchronicities amplify in your life. Just give it a try and see what it does for you. I can't wait to hear what you get out of this. And or if you're already doing this or have been doing this with results in the past, please share your story below so that other people can get inspired even more by your story and your sharing. Okay, so that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm just gonna end right here, even though I could go on for hours when it gets to this topic. But I won't take much more of your time. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe below, and I'm looking forward to see you in the next one. It is going to be, again, channeling related in one way, shape or form. I think artistic expression is one such a way. And I can't wait to see you. Okay, so much love. Keep on shining. Ciao!